Alright, Diablo 4 players, let's go over it. This is going to be the ultimate endgame guide for brand new players that maybe just finished the game. You can see this Diablo player over here. He says, well, that's probably stupid, but I need some help with torment progression. So this is a first-time Diablo player. They just finished the campaign, the story, and they went and tried to do the pit, and they got immediately destroyed. So I'm going to show you guys how to destroy the endgame and basically get so much damage that the hardest bosses in the game will pretty much get one-shotted. It kind of comes down to knowing like what build is OP, to be honest, and then usually these builds get nerfed and then we just figure something else out. That's kind of the reality of Diablo 4 at the moment. But they mentioned that all of their gear is power level 750 and they cannot go higher. And the thing is, you can actually go higher, especially with getting items with greater affixes. And they also want to know, like, how do I get stronger in the game, right? Is it Paragon points, Masterworking, or what? And they felt like they hit a brick wall and they don't know what to do. And that's totally okay. It's going to be something that players just have to kind of learn. If it's your first action RPG and you just get to the end game and you get one shot, you're like, what the heck just went on? What was the problem here? Could be your resistances. It could be that you don't have enough damage reduction or HP. So let's go ahead and cover it and show with examples directly what's giving the player more numbers here. So one of the things that the player said over here, and let's tackle these one at a time, that their gear's power level is 750 and they can't go higher. Well, you can actually go higher with what's called greater affix items. These don't drop till the later torment tiers, but you ideally want to try to get to Torment 4 as quickly as possible because this is where the best loot drops. Not every single item will be a greater affix, but it will tie into your character's damage as well as what you can actually masterwork into. The goal is to not only get this greater affix gear with as many as possible, but you need good ones. I see this very common in the Diablo community where someone's like, oh, I got a triple GA item, but the triple GA item is like life per 5 seconds or life on hit. Like, these numbers do not matter because that item's affix is basically trash. So I want to show you guys kind of a difference in a side-by-side comparison of some items here. So we can look at this item over here that is fully masterwork, that is 800 item power, and if you don't happen to have like the end game item, you're not going to be able to get the full masterworking. It will actually cap you out at a certain point. But on top of that, you can see these little stars when the item drops. These stars correlate to what's called a greater affix or what's called an ancestral. The difference is going to be the damage here. It's going to affect the what's called implicit on the item, which is kind of like where an item drops. If it's a very specific item type, it'll always roll no matter what. If it's a two-handed mace, they always roll with overpower. This number changes over here. All these numbers change, and when you start masterworking, all these numbers change as well. So it gets this and goes up by 5% per point, and then you get another bonus on 4, 8, and 12 on the masterworking. So looking at these numbers kind of like side by side, I just want you guys to kind of have these for a reference. We go from 400 strength over here to 287, even though like we could also make this like, let's say 8 out of 12 here for the masterworking because it's a 750. But basically, this number is almost like double, right? And then if we also check out the max life, I mean, that number is basically doubled. We have the vulnerable damage over here from 195 to 130. This is a number 2. These all can roll, right? These are all the max rolled. If the person hits GA, it is always the best roll, plus it's like 50% on the base of the item stats roll. If you ever played Diablo 3, you probably have also heard of like the ancestrals as well. And then also there's like Primal in Diablo 3, right? Kind of like the same concept here. But then the real important thing is when you do masterworking, because they were talking about like how do you get more power, because this ties into the next part, which is masterworking. When you have a low roll on the masterworking and tempering, this ties into your build heavily. And it's specifically getting whatever skill to either cast 2 times or get double damage. This is the biggest source of your power in your character in Diablo's progression. This is where you go from like millions to billions to trillions. This is the big number here. Your skill, whatever build that you're playing, okay, it could be like Fireball and the Sorceress, getting the Fireball to cast 2 times because you want this to be 100%. Now, with Barbarian, they happen to have more weapons, but if you're playing a one-hander, you want this on your one-hander as well as on your offhand. You definitely want to try to get whatever skill that you're doing to cast 2 times or double damage. It's pretty much in all of them. There are some other ones where if it's a dot build, it could be like damage over time, which is like related to the duration because the earthquake constantly will tick for some sort of damage, right? So you can actually get both of those and get even more damage. But the chance for it to cast twice can only go up to 100%. So getting like, more percentages past 100, don't do it because it only casts 2 times. So keep that in mind as well. You don't want to go too high. But there's also the roll on this. This is kind of where a lot of people suffer in DPS and may not notice when they try to copy someone else's build. This number matters heavily. So if you have the difference between, let's say, getting the Masterworking done is like, let's say, 88 on here versus 68 on a lower rolled one, even though you triple Masterwork crit it, you had a low roll to start off with, which affects it as you progress the entire way. I know it is super annoying to get the Masterworking to be perfect, but that's the reality of it. The best builds, the rank ones, and if you're copying someone's build and you don't copy it exactly, well, there's kind of the difference here. The difference between getting the triple Masterworking could be like maybe like 50% to 88, and that's a huge amount of damage that you're losing out on. But also it does affect the other thing that you temper on your item. Usually it's like crit damage, vulnerable damage, or damage with fire. This also does affect it. Like you can see the difference in the roll. You can get 136 to 188. That could be another area. When again, all of this starts to really add up when you have all these multipliers in Diablo. But you also have the aspect. This is another key important part to give you big damage. You can see this one is a perfect one, which is 120%, and the low rolled is 80%. Now, if we start adding this up with all of our different, like, our gloves, our amulet, which amulet gives you another 50% bonus, or if it's a two-hander, you get double the stats. All of these start to really add up, and this is a big source of additional damage that you can get, or damage reduction, because you can get a good roll, like, 10 to 20% damage reduction, sometimes getting a 10% here, 10% here. All of these, again, it's a lot of multipliers, honestly, that add up quite a bit in terms of your progression here. So to answer the question, you need to get what's called greater affixes, and don't feel like you have to get triple G8 immediately. You see there's one on the ground right there, that little star, and when it drops, you'll see that it actually rolls with at least one. Again, you can get a really bad one and it does not matter, because it will give you the higher item power on the item, but again, if it's like life per 5 seconds, that's like a garbage stat. Or there's other ones like the flat damage is usually lower rolled than the vulnerable damage or crit damage. Ideally, in most builds, you try to get 100% vulnerability, 100% crit. But honestly, if you get like 80-90% crit, don't stress out about it too much. But those are two key factors here. Unless you're playing a damage over time build, then you usually don't want crit. The exception is the Spiritborn, or there could be some very specific uniques that can interact with it. But those are like key areas here. Now, the next thing that's going to give you like one of the biggest DPS boosts as you progress when you're going into higher difficulties is specifically, they're mentioning Paragon points. So Paragon points kind of tie into two things. You're getting the legendary nodes on your character's like Paragon board. Those usually add 20 to 45 X damage. X damage is the multiplicative, and the percent one is called the additive. To not get too confusing, basically you want high both numbers, but the X damage is the multiplier, which is usually going to be a smaller number, but it means more for the build, usually because you get hundreds of additive damage, while the multiplier usually doesn't go into the X hundreds for just like one stat. It adds up to maybe like 200X, but it could go even further depending on the way that you build your character. And this again is towards the end game, because they were talking about like, is it just Paragon points? So I already talked about Masterworking, but it's Paragon points are actually very, very, very important for your end game as well. So on average, the legendary node that you get on each Paragon board that you select, the most important thing when you select which Paragon board that you're getting is whatever one that your build can actually fulfill the requirement for the X. So again, it's like 20 to 45 on average, depends on the class, depends on the board here, but that's kind of what they give. So you get that immediately at the start, that you don't need to put any more than just 1 point into that legendary node. Now, the big area that I think a lot of people need to maybe kind of see visually, and I want to provide this example, is specifically leveling up the glyphs that socket into these Paragon boards that have massive damage. On average, most of the little small nodes will give you some amount of additive damage, and then once you reach the glyph to be level 46, and you level these up by going into the pit, which the person already was talking about and he got destroyed, right? You need to make sure that you are leveling up all of your glyphs, because each one can go up to 100. I'll be honest though, most builds can't not reach 100 unless you're playing the most meta of builds, which we'll talk about in a second. I'll give you guys recommendations on where to get these builds. You're going to get like another 10 to 20x damage at rank 46 of the glyph, which everyone can get. Everyone can get the legendary bonus, but most builds, unless you really know what you're doing, you're kind of going to tap out at about like 50 to 70. It's only the really top tier builds that can do hit 100s. So just keep that in mind to keep your expectations realistic when you're going in. So I wanted to again use this kind of as a side by side, and that's why I wanted to make this video, because I've talked about how to get like damage and stuff in the past, but I think this is going to be really good for newer players. So you can see over here where we have this overpower damage. Let me actually make this bigger. So you can see this glyph. So remember, there's a legendary node. It's going to give you 20 to 45x. You're going to rush that first usually, and then you start to socket in the glyphs, and as you level up the glyphs, these little areas get bigger, and you see kind of like a radius. It's almost kind of in a circle, but basically it'll say for every 5 willpower or strength or dex or intelligence that your character has, you're going to get a bonus amount of damage, and then you're going to get another bonus on the glyph once you reach that like 25 requirement here. So that correlates to the additional bonus. Then once you level up to 46, there's usually an X multiplier bonus. This is the big key ticket here. You need to make sure that you're reaching this, and then this number also heavily gets changed. So if we were to look at the difference between someone that's like, oh, I'm still leveling up my glyphs, you can see, well, they've got like 3% willpower per point that they're putting in versus the other person, well, they're getting 32. I mean, that's 10x the amount in terms of numbers that they're getting for every 5 willpower. They still put 1 Paragon point in, but they're getting 10 times the amount. So that's where the big difference is. And then also, you definitely want to try to get that legendary bonus, which again, level up to 46. You can see that there's a big difference between getting 349 and then a 12x multiplier of that 349 in just this. Because remember, we're not even talking about on your weapon, getting specifically that high item power. You're going to get that implicit. This overpower then gets multiplied times this number. If the person isn't getting that, well, then you can see again where this power dynamic shifts even further. So it gets bigger and bigger when you start adding up that. Remember, you're going to have 5 different glyphs. And if you have 5 different nodes, the legendary nodes that also multiply all of your power, this is where you go from like, again, thousands of damage to millions, trillions, billions, and then just one-shotting everything in the game. There's a huge difference between a good build and a bad build, or like a busted build. Like this is one I'm going to show you guys real quick that is like in Season 9, this is definitely going to get nerfed though. Well, more than likely, you can see where we're hitting for billions, and then we do so much damage that it goes into negative. Again, Diablo is in the situation where a lot of the best builds are always broken, and it's good to know which builds are the broken or the flavor of the month in the game. And so that's why I'm going to tie into the next area, which is also getting mythic items. This is kind of something that's important, and this is a huge boost, but don't focus in like when you just finish the campaign to farm mythics. This is something that you will eventually do later down the line, because a lot of these best builds require 2 to 3 mythics. The reality of it is like most of the time it's the helmet slot that becomes quite annoying, but you can always look for builds that do not require mythics, which is something I want to talk about real quick. So following a build guide is very important. It doesn't matter what website you use. There's tons of different websites, okay? But ideally, I'd recommend you guys to try to look at specifically Diablo partner builds. Like on all my videos, and a lot of the other Diablo partner videos, we will have hashtag Diablo partner. And the reason why I don't want you guys to just go to the website and click on a build, you may copy a build that genuinely sucks. And most of the official Diablo partners, their builds pretty good, okay? Like, sure, there's going to be discrepancies of like certain aspects, which ones are better, but for the most part, they're going to let you one-shot the boss. And that's the most important thing when you're copying a build, is like, can you one-shot the boss with it? Because some of these bosses will have mechanics where either you're going to have to learn and have a 5-minute boss fight, which, hey, for the first time, I actually recommend. But most of the time, with these mythics specifically, you want to go in, you want to kill the boss in 1 second and farm it like 100 times. That's how the game works for the end game. You want to do the bosses hundreds and thousands of times even to get that 1% drop chance of the mythic. It's like 1 to 2%. It's a pretty low drop rate. But also, following a build guide is super key here, because it's going to tell you which aspects that you need for which build. Like this one is called Incendiary Fissures, and it's going to give you this bonus if you're playing like an Earthquake Barbarian. It is so important to know which aspects to actually play, because they're just usually mathematically 100% correct to just play this one, because this one, let's say, adds 100x while the other one adds an 80. Now, some of these may have different uptimes, but again, you have to know which aspects are the ones that you need for your character. That is key. Also, getting the higher rolled aspects, when you get them to drop, you just salvage them and it's going to permanently give it to your account However, every single time there's a new season, you have to reacquire those aspects. And also, if you're playing seasons, you also have to know which sort of seasonal power is the best for your build. And again, the two websites that I can recommend, mobalytics.gg, it's the one that, I'm obviously going to shout them out because that's kind of, I work with them, so it does help me out. Also, if you guys visit the website, when you click on any of the Mobalytic content creators, they basically get a kickback, which helps them out. But it's just like the build guide, it's just basically just the ads. It's going to be on every single, build website where they have ads. But, Maxroll is a pretty good website too. There's also D4 builds. There's a lot of different websites, but I'm obviously going to recommend Mobalytics because I work with them. I genuinely like that it is beginner friendly because it shows you these other nodes that you can get in colors, so it makes it easier to kind of see what you're supposed to kind of get when you are making your build planner. But there are also there's a lot of top content creators on both of these. These are the two sites that I'm going to recommend, even though I'm telling you, just go to Mobalytics. There's also a downloadable app that will ping you when the world boss is actually going to be happening. So these little tools kind of help out beginners, and I think that the website is actually superior if you want to download the app, which is free. I don't get a kickback when you guys download the app, but again, if you are visiting any content creators like build guides, usually whatever website that they're linking, they're going to get a kickback from it. So anyways, other important things that you have to look out for on some builds, and I say some builds because there are builds out there that don't have to have this, but the one thing that you do need is 1,000 armor in the endgame. He didn't put this as a question, but if he's going to destroy, I promise you, it's because you don't have armor and resistances. So in general, you want 1,000 armor. This is not up for debate. Now resistances, I'll be honest, is kind of optional. So ideally, you try to get 70% in all your resistances. By the way, that includes shadow resistance. I don't know, for whatever reason, that one usually gets ignored. It's because it's a little bit harder to get on some of the Paragon boards because a lot of the builds will say fire res or lightning res, and you can get all res too on some boards. But shadow res, make sure you get this. Certain seasons, it's okay to throw in let's say certain jewels inside of your rings and amulets, but in other seasons you kind of want to play the new seasonal power that's in the jewelry slot, so keep that in mind as well. But I want to mention something else. Once again, Diablo team is reworking the resistances again next season. If you guys didn't know, you can get 5 additional resistances next season in each category, which will make you more tanky. However, they are also nerfing the all-res roll on a lot of the unique items, which gives you less resistance. So it's kind of a weird shift up that they're doing, but just because I want my videos to be kind of ready for the next season as well, just giving you guys that info there. So keep in mind, next season, just for free, you get 5 additional max res, which is actually pretty big. But I'm going to also say this because I think it's really relevant, because the next question in terms of survivability, if people are getting destroyed, is, well, how much HP do I need? There's something in a lot of action RPGs called EHP, which refers to effective health pool, because you can have 500,000 life and no damage reduction or no armor. It means that you're going to take way more damage than someone that meets all of these other requirements. So I would say 10 to 20k life would be an okay number to kind of think about, because some people, they copy other content creators' builds, and the other content creator has a lot of damage reduction, or they have some sort of built-in barrier that's going to keep their character alive. And the more HP that you have, the more higher amount of barrier that you can generate, or there's fortification. Certain builds have some other tactics to gain some other source of survivability. So I can't really tell you a direct flat number. But in terms of resistances, there's a lot of top tier builds. The guys that are doing rank 1 pushes, they sometimes will have 30 resistances. You ideally don't want to be negative, to be honest, at the super high level of the game. You can get away with a lot. And the reason why that the other players are able to get away with a lot is, one, I'm gonna be honest, they're pretty good players. They know exactly what they can and can't take for damage. They know certain time windows when certain things activate. But to make it easier, honestly, get a lot of greater affix max life rolls. It makes your character's progression honestly very, very easy, especially with overpower benefiting on max life as well. That's another area where you can get a lot of survivability. Also, your character's main stat usually gives you some sort of defenses. Unlike the barb, it gives you armor. If you're playing the sword, it gives you extra all resistance. So getting the max stat only can give you damage, but also damage reduction. So consider getting that to have more survivability as well. But again, the best advice that I can give you is to check out different websites to actually copy the correct build guide versus giving you all the info in one video. It's better just to have that like reference that you can kind of look back on when you're trying to copy a build. But other videos I want to go ahead and actually give you, as well as anyone else, for a recommendation that would really help out, because they were talking about Paragon. If you want the best source of XP, I have a video guide on it, but the TLDR is just slam the pit. But there's other like bonus tips in here. You can look any of these videos up. Just type in Slaydra, Diablo 4, best Season 8, because that's the season we're in right now. Best way to get XP, and it is actually the same in Season 9, at least as of right now, with the exception of the Escalation dungeon when you get a special mod for extra XP. Also, because I want to mention the mythics. Mythics are actually so easy in Season 8. This is the easiest season right now. If you're like, I really want to get a mythic, watch these 2 videos. I promise it will really help out your progression. This is the easiest season to get mythics, where a lot of people, they will play for the whole season and be like, I can never get a mythic. I promise you, it's not that difficult, especially even if you're a casual. You can get the mythics this season. This is the easiest season we've ever had to get mythics. This is the season. If you want to get all the mythics, go for it. Also, another thing that I feel like is important is to watch this video that goes how to 100 extra damage. It really comes down to getting aspects, but there's a lot of other like tips and tricks in that video. Highly recommend checking that out, as it's up to date, talking about Season 8. But another thing, this is kind of older, but if you have not gotten the altar locations, because this will give you Paragon points and it will give your character permanent power, you only need to do this one time. Every single season it will roll over. These are called the Lilith altar locations. I have a video on this, but honestly, if you just Google it, you can find all the locations, and that will really help out. Also, it will explain like kind of like the order that you can go in on different websites to really help out. As you just finished the campaign, you're gonna have to go all the way around the world, basically in Sanctuary, and you're gonna have to find where these Lilith altars are, because again, that's permanent power for your character. But that's going to wrap it up, and that's my ultimate like end game guide for people that are brand new and just finished the campaign, as I felt like it was definitely time to update you guys as things have changed, and also I feel like we can always make videos better. But yeah, do that and your character will be much stronger. But hopefully this guide and video helped you newer Diablo players out. If it did, drop a like on it, and if you are new here and you want to see more sort of videos like this in the future, hit subscribe, turn that bell, and I will definitely be uploading more. But take care, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.